All right, here we go. If you made a map, if you looked at a map, Satan mocks everything that God does. And if you go back to Genesis, when woman was created, God put Adam in a deep sleep. It never said Adam woke up. So it's time for man and women to wake up. So the enemy messes with the mocking, messes with us through mocking us. So if you look at 15th Street East, 15th Street West, and 1st Street, okay, there's exactly 30 blocks approximately between the two. Jesus' ministry is 30 and 3 years. 30 and 3 years, 33, the number 3. 30 blocks between the 15th Street East, 15th Street West. And there's churches on both ends of the crosses. Both arms of the cross. So the enemy mocks and puts everybody asleep in those areas. That's where the principalities came in. They came in from the east, went to the west. Now what makes Manatee County and Sarasota County stronger strongholds is they have secondary gates of hell. Like this one's 15th Street East. There's another one on the Devil's Elbow with the Manatee River. The going way up the river to the east side, which we won't show you now. I'm just trying to make a statement here. So the enemy puts a spirit of sleep over the people, and the enemy always uses one man warlock to several women, 6 women to 1 man and or more. So when it keeps happening over and over and over, as they start a religion, and Jesus did away with the religion. He paid the price for everything. And there's nothing wrong with the building. There's nothing really wrong with the people, but the leadership is still asleep. So even warlocks are still deceived and still asleep. So they must wake up or give up the reins of the buildings of the land, because also the jurisdiction comes from owning the property. Now, it's hard to knock down a gate of hell, even if you live next door to it, unless you have jurisdiction. Same as when you go back in the scriptures, where Joseph had reign of the kingdom under Pharaoh. Pharaoh gave it over to him, and Joseph told his father that he has been a spiritual father to Pharaoh. So spiritual fathers, spiritual mothers, to break the yoke of sleep over the people. Now the enemy comes in and causes sleep into the area. And we must break this down. We must break it down, wake it up. Now, in times past, I have gotten tons of revelation on this, and it was hard to stay asleep. It was hard to remember it. It was hard to write it down. It's hard to speak about it, because the enemy does not want you to wake up. So, like I said, I can talk as fast as I can, blah, 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 blah. You know, talk as fast as you can about some deep stuff, some exciting stuff, and they'll fall asleep in 3 to 7 minutes in these certain areas and all in other areas because the spirit of sleep. So the gate of hell, and then the smaller gates, you know, like I said, there's 2 main gates here, and then there's 3rd, 4th, and 5th is smaller gates. But if you could just take the main gate, you know, that will cancel out all the other gates. And, you know, then you think about the people who opened up the gates of hell. Some of them have the last name of Gates. So this is no coincidence, people. There's a lot of people that were born in heaven, created in heaven, and then God put them in the womb, and then they were reborn on the earth, and then they're just waking up. The first fruits people are just waking up here. Okay, now let's go to the secondary. Okay, the many people in the valley of decision were born of man and woman, woman and man and woman here in the natural, and they will be reborn and be grafted in to the eternal timeline, which Jesus came from eternity, stepped into temporal time, corrupt time, this fallen world, to show us how to move forward. Okay, so back up a little bit. You go to the first time that some people, not all, are born in heaven before they are put in the womb here and rebirth in this timeline. They are just waking up to wake up the rest of you. It's just the first fruits people are born in heaven before they're born here. Now, not everybody's born that way. Some of them are just born a man and woman. And as you witness to them, God will install a living soul and they will be grafted into. It's not argumentative who comes first and who comes later, because the first fruits had to go through hell, and some of them were murdered and killed to try to stay awake, to try to bring this revelation to you today. And the enemy tried to kill me different times also. So now the revelation must go forward, how to wake up the multitudes. So the enemy closes your third eye, if you want to call it that, your frontal lobe. And in a lot of charismatic services, they will have all these people up on the altar, they'll pray for them, they'll fall out. Now, Jesus asked me, why are all these people laying all over my altar? And I'm kind of new to Pentecostalism at that time. And I'm just listening. I'm not going to tell Jesus anything because he knows everything, and I'm just listening. He said, and I said, well, I thought they were slain in the spirit. He goes, well, I would never slay anybody's spirit. It's their flesh that's the issue. So he said, I could, if they try to stand against me, they will fall over and pass out because their flesh is the issue. He said, there shouldn't be a bunch of people laying all over my altar. You need to kneel down next to them and speak into them what saith the Lord for their destiny, to wake them up, to speak the revelation of Jesus Christ into them so that their destiny will not be thwarted. So these people go to these meetings over and over and over, and all these people laying on the altar and nobody's speaking into them. Then the Lord says, well, let me tell you a picture story about if you went to the doctor said you needed surgery, took you to the hospital, they would subdue your flesh, anesthesiologist would knock you out, and you'd hope that the surgeon showed up to do the operation. So spiritually speaking, spiritual mapping, you got to be wake up to the Spirit, to Jesus, to the revelation, and open up your mind's eye. And it's a scripture, I believe it's in Luke. Luke 6:22. I don't know for sure. But it says, if your eye being full of light, therefore your whole being, your whole vessel be full of light. Now, the problem is a lot of people keep going back to sleep. So, simply put, Adam was put in a deep sleep, birthed a woman, never said he woke up. It's time to wake up. And it's hard to stay awake. It's hard to bring all these revelations forward because the enemy will try to mess them up, try to thwart it, try to mess up your speech, try to discredit you, try to tell you you're just seeing things and hearing things. And then in times past, the enemy would try to get them locked up and or imprisoned and make them crazy and make them think they're crazy because they're hearing things in the spirit, seeing stuff in the spirit. Now, if you took a picture, which I have over 15th Street East, and there's a picture, and the picture looked real cloudy. I blew it up on the computer when I got back to the house, and you can see thousands of orbs in the picture. And you're literally seeing a picture into the gates of hell. I was surprised because it was just a regular camera, and I took a picture, and all these souls stuck in the gate of hell. And you can argue religion or whatever if you want to, but I'm not arguing. They're supposed to canonize 87 books, at least. They canonize, I forget, 70 some, and then they boil it down to 73, I believe. Don't take that at what I say and look it up for yourself. And then they butchered the book. They butchered the book to 66 books. Now, they butchered the book to 66 books, hoping that you would never wake up, because 6 is the number of man and 7 is the number of spiritual completion, because on the 7th day God rested. Everything was good and very good on the 7th day. So all the 7s in Revelation mean spiritual completion, complete spiritual completion, revelation, restoration, resurrection, because on the 7th day God rested and everything was good and very good. So we're going to talk about this over and over and over, so hopefully we can keep you awake. And I tried to preach on it so many times in the past. I preached on it a couple of days ago, and 2 of the people in the room, there's 4 of us, 2 of the people fell asleep, 2 stayed awake. And even on the mountain, on the mount, when Jesus says, "Can't you stay awake this hour?" to the disciples, "Can't you just stay awake this hour?" And they kept falling asleep. They kept falling asleep. And Jesus was on the mountain. It was a very spiritual, major thing going on where the third and the first heaven were meeting once again. And the enemy kept putting them to sleep, so they missed out on what was actually happening in that time frame. What was actually happening with Jesus and going in third heaven, Moses and Elijah. So you can think about that. Moses is a father. Elijah was a fire starter, a prophet, apostles. So Elijah is like the prophet, and Moses like the apostle or father. So if you read in history, all history repeats over and over and over and over, and you can say that 1,000 more times. So if you want to know the future, look into the past. If you want to know today, you can find it in the past, and we're still riding in these crazy cycles of same thing. Now, Jesus stepped out of eternal time into this time, this temporal time, and changed the time. So if you believe in today's date and time, this timeline, this time was changed. Because when they fell into time, the farther you go back in the numbers are higher and higher the farther you go back in time. So he zeroed out time to show us how to move forward. Now, we are also supposed to change times, change destinies, in order to change everything on the planet and back to the restoration of all things. When they talk about after time or the end time, it's symbolic of smashing the time clock, smashing this time of cruel taskmaster, of drudgery and the sweat of our brow and the weeds in the garden. And the weeds in the garden are just lies. So everything was lies. So Eve gave birth to the liar, which was Cain, by receiving the lie from Satan. Then she birthed Abel. Of course, he got killed by the lie, by the evil seed. Then she had to give birth to another baby, one of God's babies, one of God's spiritual babies, which talks about the first fruits, the revelation thereof. So we're going to get into this every which way, left, right, and forward, and backward, and time, space, time continuum. The Great Awakening is happening now. I could go to any town and I could just pray, just like Joseph did, pray and ask where death came in. What does it mean? How do we reverse it? Where do we have to go? What we have to declare. And I really don't want the job, never wanted a job. I tried to get rid of the job and kept asking the Lord, isn't there somebody else? Please, isn't there somebody else who can do this job? I do not want the job. It's kind of like you get one of those jobs and, like the old song, take this job and shove it. Don't work here no more. I wouldn't say that, but I really didn't want the job. And, it's kind of like those jobs in the natural. You kind of hope they fire you. So, you might not want to leave because, the job's okay, but the boss is a pain in the butt. So symbolic, a cruel taskmaster, bad management, bad preachers, bad pastors, bad apostles, bad prophets, which we got to rectify this by the Great Awakening in order to cancel out death. And the enemy, like I say, mocks everything. So the sign of the cross is life to them that are with him, that are going to have everlasting life, grafted into the timeline of timeline continuum, always continued. The timeline that was broke, and the cross is also death to them that are perishing in this time, that will not accept the Lord, will not enter his rest, will not receive the revelation. And let's not argue about it. Let's pray about it. Let's talk about it. I appreciate any questions or any confirmations or whatever. So thank you. Thank you. Now get ready to do the next video, please. Thank you.